and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology, Debunking Mythology. And so I have been saying this before. Sat means truth. So Sattology means science of truth, and which is exact antonym of mythology, which means a science of myth. So Sattology is what we are focusing on, that how we focus on the truth. And sometimes the alternative talks available in your university circles and other places is primarily focused on an official record, and it may not gel with the traditions of the world, especially traditions which they are trying to talk about. So today we have chosen a very interesting topic with a very famous author. He's and a songwriter and a poet and also a Jyotish, all these combined into one. And he is a follower of a tradition from India, Brahma Sampradaya. So without delay, let us welcome Sri Jeffrey Armstrong.
Pranam Zadi, and to everyone, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Honor to be with you again.
It's very difficult for people to understand what is a Surah and Asura. And so they are not able to identify who is a real friend and who is not a real friend. And oftentimes we all want something good to happen. You're a linguist as well. So when we say Sur Asura, what is the exact meaning according to your understanding?
Well, these roots pertain essentially to light and dark, but they're much more profound than that. Su in Sanskrit is 1,000 times better, or one's own. In a sense, the start of this is the definition of the Atma as part of Brahman, and of Brahman as Briha, which, by the way, gives us the English word brilliant. So the brilliance of light is the path of the Devas, and anything against that, Asura, is then leading us to destruction. The Ra means radiant, shining, again, brilliant. So we're faced in this realm with two choices of self-definition and affiliation, Sura or Asura. The torchlight for this is Surya, and the feminine partner planet, Chandra.
One of the interesting things is like all these terms. One of the things I see in the campuses is that many times these terms are completely extrapolated in a way. Now, they say that you're discussing Hindutva, or somehow the Hinduism is good and Hindutva is bad. And this is what they made it. When I tell people Hindutva is just a Hindi name, Hindi word. You don't say in Hindi Hinduism. Hinduism is an English word. And whenever you put the ISM, it becomes a cultish, where Hindutva is a Sanskrit word in terms of one who, the essence of Hindu or the essence of Sanatan Dharma. And some people have a problem with using the word Hindu also. But I can tell you that even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used the word Hindu to some people.
And if we trace this even further back, Adi, of course, we go to Deva Nagari. And so it is in the language, or in compromising our language and using someone else's words, that the obscuring of this distinction takes place. Deva Nagari is the city where the Devas live. They live in the Sanskrit alphabet.
Now, you touched an important point on yesterday only. We were discussing the chronology of Sanskrit. And Nagari means the language of the Nagar. Like Nagar is a city, the language of city. So the language of the city of Deva is Deva Nagar, not the language, the Lipi. or the writing, the writing system is Devanagari. And some people have a, so whenever you talk in Sanskrit, again the religious fervor is attached, whereas Sanskrit is a scientific language, totally opposite of that.
Exactly. This, and again, religion is not a Sanskrit word, nor is it a Vedic term. And so one must stay in control of the conversation, not to be in control, but to be with the light of words that have a precise meaning. Another way to think of this is that the farther the meaning is obscured, then in that obscuring of the meaning, then the actual truth and light doesn't shine through. So in a way, etymology, the subject of etymology, is following meaning back to its source. And that isn't able to be described by any English word like religion or anything like that. It stands with its own definitions and own terminology. Unless you use it, you take the other person's terms of discussion, and now you've already lost the link to the original discussion, which is not a religion. It's essentially a language, and it's a shining from the origin that is shining down to us via the language.
No, you mentioned very good points about the shining on the language and the Surah and Asura. You initially described that. Very difficult to find people with Surah. They are Besura, but see, the Surah also means, you described, is in harmony, and in harmony with the nature and other things. And Asura means not in harmony. So,
Absolutely.
and in music we use a lot suratal. So Surah is means like you're singing in melody or according to the raga, and Asura, Besura means singing out of melody. So what is that Surah standard then, so that we can be in sync with the memory, with the melody? You're a musician, so I can ask you that question.
Ah. Well, we have to go back to one more word, and we have to keep essentially our yoga is defined by our terminology. So the pivotal word is ritam, R-I-T-A-M in transliteration, but from the re of the Sanskritam. And this ritam means the original rules and principles on which existence as we are experiencing it here within matter, within prakriti. That cause and effect of prakriti is the re of the ritam, and it is the discussion of this word that is left out by almost everyone, even speaking on behalf of the Vedic culture. Most people aren't trained to take the conversation back to the ritam, which essentially means the source of what we call the laws of nature. So the laws of nature are the basis of our conversation.
See, one somebody was asking just now, is chatting with us, and is asking, one of the questions comes is that there are many people, the whole world is breaking apart, and the religions are actually dividing the world, and our point is counterpoint to that dharma is not religion, dharma is a duty. So religions divide, dharma unites. It is a very uh, correct way to putting it, because dharma doesn't see your color of your face, doesn't see your skin color, doesn't see your eye, doesn't see your nose. Dharma just looks for the qualities and your character, and so therefore dharma actually unites, because throughout the world every single mother father wants to see a stable future for their kid, and that's dharma, and that is not religion, because so people have to understand that dharma is all the good things in the world in a righteous way. So if a mother father is trying to take care of the child, that's dharma. And if a CEO of a corporation tries to take care of their employees, that's dharma. But if they work against the interests of their own people who are under their care, that's adharma. Religion doesn't come into play. Religion means you follow a faith or a belief blindly, which is different. What do you have to say on that, sir?
Well, let's take this
Mahoday.
root. Let's take this root of dri a little further and use it. First, I'll remind everyone of a word, drishti. Hear the re in there? So seeing, and the ritam gives the ri, which is the root of the word kri for karma, and dri for dharma. So let's do dharma's root. DHRI. Dri means the essential nature of a thing, which, if you take it away, it is no longer itself. This is a liquid. This is water. This is glass. Glass holds. Water is liquid. The dri of each of those is not a religion. It's a science. It's the essential nature of a thing. This is the precise definition of the root dri, which is going to become the word dharma. So first you must ask, what is the essence of this thing? Its essence is based upon the ritam, the ri, the laws of nature that have worked together to make it exist. And then the dharma of using it is to be in conformity with intended and purposeful laws that exist in nature, which are not codes of a blind faith religion. They are the discoverable scientific essential natures of the structure of reality. Working with that is dharma. Working against that is adharma. Working with that is Surah. Going against it is Asura.
So one of the questions comes up is how do you identify these people? How do you know who is a Sura and who is an Asura? How do you know? So one of the things which I usually say is there are three aspects. You have to understand the Sanskrit words very clearly. One is a Bandhu, Mitra, and Suhrit. Suhrit is the highest standards, which only Vishnu or Deva can be, because they are the ones who are the best well-wisher of anyone. Mitra is a personal friend, like you can call him home. And Bandhu is a person who you don't call him home, but he's a good acquaintance or somebody colleague in an office. And then there are other two words which are called Shatru and Dushman. Now, Dushman is a one who keeps ill feelings towards you. Dushman, like doesn't take you, his mind is not clean towards you. And so those people are definitely have to be kept away. They are neither Bandhu, nor Mitra, nor Surit. But there is another category called Shatru. Shatru means he's not only a Dushman, but he's also willing and capable of hurting you with weapons. So it's called Shatru. So these are the 5 categories of people. So if you identify based on this criteria, then you can always identify who is with you and who is not with you. Because this world is a world of duality. And we have not risen above duality. So Mahabharata teaches us to make proper distinction between the two. If you don't make proper distinction, you might get cheated sometimes. What do you have to say on this type of classification? This is also from Mahabharata, coming from Mahabharata.
Very well said. I like to, I came in from the outside into this very sophisticated Vedic culture. So I like to bring it back to simple things. So you all know the answer to this question. If I hand you food with my left hand, what's the problem? Here's my right hand. Here's my left hand. They seem both to be fine as far as hands go. But because of the nature of this realm, I have to decide which one of these I'm going to put here and which one I'm going to put here. If I hand you food with this hand, you know what it means. You say, thank you, I've already eaten. With this one, you realize that I know the difference between this whole and the other one. This is Surah, meaning where the inbound sattvic substances go in and they come out as tamas. So tam is the opposite of sat. And in between is Raj. So these lead us to the three gunas. We can't have this conversation without talking about entropy. That everything within matter goes from created and full of value and nourishment and utility and is gradually degraded to the point that it now has to be recycled. This is the basis of our conversation, Surah, Asura.
So another question which comes from the audience is that when was this culture first taught? When did this all begin?
The first time you pooped your diaper. It's just, don't make it complicated. We're complicated. Don't make it complicated. You're either full of food or something else. And essentially, it is this cultivation of the destructive principle that is Asura, which means eventually you're full of shit.
So the another point is like why all this knowledge is only in the Eastern culture, why it is not here? And my point is that you have to identify yourself here. Why this is not only in the Eastern culture, and so you can also find out where is the civilization and where it is not. So there's a very famous saintly person, Prabhupada. He said, where is the Western civilization? That's one question he asked. Where is the Western civilization? And they mentioned in the point of view, you drink cow's milk and you send it for slaughter. Where is the civilization then? So we have to ask those things to ourselves, that why this knowledge was in the eastern part of the world. Another point is that why do all the sages and gods appear in the Eastern culture? So
the food is better.
Yeah, that's a one good reason. Any other philosophical reason do you have?
Of course. Because remember, what I just said to you when I pointed out the difference between the food as it comes into us and goes out, is that what goes into the food is the sun and the moon. The Veda says that the sun makes the food ripe and the moon makes it sweet. So there's some kind of divine process going on that feeds and sustains us. But when that food and sustenance is not there, then the effect of that substance is not the same. So it's very important we don't make this a religious discussion, because it's not. It's very practical. It's very scientific. This is a scientific conversation about what to eat, about how to behave, about how to remove the toxins from your body. The same principle of, is it toxic or is it edible? Is it healthy? Is it nurturing? Is it fostering life? We're really talking about fostering life, or, and let's use the classical idea, becoming a vampire and taking the life of others as the way that we live. Would that not be the most degraded thing that a human could do? Would be to live upon the flesh of other human beings and eat them? And yet it is the history of our planet. If I tell you, do you like health food? You say, yes, I do. I say, yes, so do the Asuras. And do you know what health food is for an Asura? Babies. To be a cannibal. And the healthiest food you could eat amongst all living entities is the young of that species. Why? Because they have all the vitamins and all the nutrients. So now, is Asura too complicated for you? Asura is a cannibal who takes what they want from nature without fear of consequence, without caring, without feeling, and builds a world around those principles. And Deva is one who cares, who brings enlightenment, light, beauty, truth, nourishment, cleanliness. One is Sat, one is Asat. It is science.
Very beautifully put it. And one of the things which comes to my mind is that the zombie movies is total fiction. Total fiction. It's like and it's in the major religious texts of some cultures, and it's the zombie thing, which is like a dead have never risen. Actually, they rise, but in a new body. The same body cannot come up. So the concept of zombie is also a fake concept. It's not a reality. All the movies are made on it just to encash your sentiments, because somebody told you the dead will rise from the graves. But in your experience, have you ever seen rising from a grave? Never. That's why we say rest in peace. What do you have to add on that?
Well, I like to bring this down to what you're having for dinner also. So when Adi mentioned the cow, but let's just think of all the animals right now. And so if this was happening to humans, so think of what I'm about to tell you is happening to humans. So they're raised in the dark in overcrowded cells, so much so that they have no room essentially to be. They're tortured daily. They're fed only to make them fatter, being ready to then be killed. And so would you like to live in such a place? How about if you get your apartment right in the middle of one of these places where animals are being raised for slaughter right now all across the planet? How would the aesthetics of that be? Would you enjoy that, living in that apartment? Like them, watching them cry all the time in pain and anguish? Now, those beings are not even having a life, and they're now being raised to become someone's dinner, someone who won't even think about their suffering and their pain and their sorrow. And yet they eat their bodies. Oh, and that's normal. And then we have a guy named Ronald McDonald who acts like a clown while giving this poison, this flesh of tortured beings to children. And we have a commercial and make it fun and call it Disneyland. That's Western civilization. That is Asura, against the light, against the Ritam, and it's horrible.
There's another question comes from the audience, is that why are we introducing a caste system? And we have done another show on that. Maybe you can watch it, because we are not introducing any caste system. We are removing caste system here, because the word caste is a European word, comes from casta in Spanish and Portuguese both.
Portuguese.
And so we are removing it.
Oh, we're casting out caste. It's a colonizing. It has nothing to do with this conversation at all. But let's start it again like this. Doesn't this mean you're not in a caste? I see you as an immortal being on a journey, and I respect you because you are that, and I'm going to treat you that way. You can count on it. I'm not going to put you in a room to fatten you up and eat you, nor am I going to do that with your dog, nor with your puppy, nor with your cow. You know what? I'm going to live on light. I'm going to live on food that causes the least amount of harm to others whenever possible. What's that got to do with caste? It's got to do with what's on your dinner table. So don't get confused. You're so confused. You're making everything into somebody else's story. Listen to what we're saying. We're talking science. This is just science.
It's an
It's
experiential
just cause
science.
and effect.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things which is, we're getting a lot of questions today because I think you are loving our shows, thought-provoking shows, and fun too. By the way, I'm not making fun of anyone here, nor is Jeffrey. We are just
No.
answering your questions. Now, one thing which I hear the question is, are you bringing yoga into Christianity? No, we are not. But we are asking you to practice yoga because it is beneficial for you.
We're bringing yogurt to Christianity. Stop eating meat and eat yogurt. Take care of the cow. Be kind. Live in a gentle way on the planet. Don't you know about entropy? Those industries I was talking about give off toxic gases, toxic wastes. Everyone's suffering. Worse, the planet's being destroyed by it. Just follow it. Don't get trapped in traps, linguistic traps that were made to confuse you. In this viewpoint, we look at everyone and say, I respect you because you're an immortal divine being visiting this realm of matter. Now, let's cooperate together to live here with the least harm, most joy, and most respect for every living entity.
Yeah.
How do you
This
get
is
cast out of that?
so there is no caste here. There's no, so the word caste is a European word. Don't ever attach it to the Vedic culture or a Hindu culture. And the secondly, which point is saying, yes, we are introducing yoga, but not in Christianity. Yoga is for you. And we have nothing to do with other religions. We are not talking about any other religion right now. We are doing comparative studies only. Now, one question is, are the histories of Mahabharata and Ramayana are real? Well, the whole channel is about that. They are Sattology. And any of our 400 videos, 450 videos that are there on our channel, all speak about that with various degrees of certainty about the happening of Ramayana and Mahabharata. Yes, they are a fact and they are there for us to verify. But I challenge you on one aspect. Any of the other religions, especially Abrahamic faith, give me one astronomical proof, give me any one proof on geographical or the text, who wrote them or why they were written. Give me any such proof, and will be happy to discuss with you there. What do you have to say on that question, sir?
Once again, I want to tell you all a secret. When somebody wants to avoid the conversation you're leading them into, they take you to another idea which is irrelevant and less intelligent. So you have to stay in control of this conversation, okay? So you have to ask hard questions of Western civilization. Don't worry about their religion. What is that? It's just a bunch of rules about how to live. But let's keep this conversation scientific, can we? Let's talk about it in a scientific way. I don't care what your blind faith is. I don't care what you're blind about. I want to know how you're going to live on this planet. I want to know how we're going to have a sustainable future. I want to know how the cycles of nature will be respected so that each year the soil is replenished full of nutrients. Let me give you a simple example. Everyone knows about the yajna, the Agnihotra yajna, the so-called pagan fire sacrifice. It's just cooking your dinner. Let's be truthful here. Now, when you take the wood, if you cut all the trees down to get the wood, you won't have dinner next week. You won't have anything to cook with. So you gather firewood very carefully. You put it on the fire. You cook your dinner. And since nature created the dinner, you raise your hands up and say, "Oh, nature, oh, devas, oh, devis, oh, divine beings, oh, supreme being," whoever is your friend, whoever your word is. You say, "Thank you." Now that's called a yajna. So now, supposedly, the fire's carrying the smoke upward. symbolically saying thank you to the atmosphere, to nature, to the laws of nature. You're also making a promise. I'm going to cooperate with the laws of nature. And what's the last thing you do? And if you don't know this part, your children will be morons in 3 generations because there'll be no vitamins in your soil. You take the ashes from the fire and you put them in the garden.
Right.
That's where all the nutrients are for next year's food. Now, Asura is to go against these laws that regulate nature, which originally come from the light, and make life livable, enjoyable, and beneficial for the maximum of living entities, all, not just humans. Give them a life. We take the least amount of life. We do it in the most respectful way. And we do it in such a way that there's a future for each generation. That is the principles of Dharma. That is not religion. That is science.
So one of the things which comes to my mind, yesterday I gave a talk on solar system, that how the solar system is very scientifically described only in the Vedic culture, and the count of the days and the distance of the planets exactly matches the modern scientific discovery. There are 1 or 2 miles off in every way, but I have a challenge to the scientists that there is a modern calculation might be wrong. You have to go back and see if why is it or not matching 1 or 2 miles or 3 miles. That's the culture we are talking about. We are not talking about a culture which is not based on experiential science. You can experience it. Now, before, and I'll give one example, and Jeffrey helped me out with a skylight view light, and I've been addicted to that for last 3 days based on that app. And also, so I'm also learning. So it's an exercise which is for posterity. Like it just helps you engages you in a positive way. Now I'll tell you one example of the star of Abhijit, star of which is called Vega, and I did my research on that. Now all those areas it goes into. Now these are the sciences which engage you in a positive way in this culture. What is your view on that, and how is that helping the students in a way? Because most of the students are connected to, and today we have a large audience, so we are getting bombarded with questions right now, because I'm happy these questions make it really good discussion. So how is that connected to, and how is that disconnected with the modern religions of the world? Because science is not there, it's all dogmas. We have discussed that in detail in one of the earlier shows, the distance between a dogma and a science. What do you have to say on that, sir?
Well, first of all, I want to give a definition to you that I've made up. Modern science as we know it, first of all, it came from India. Let's be clear. It came through the Greeks, and it came through Aristotle, and Aristotle came through Socrates, and Socrates came through Pythagoras. Pythagoras is a Sanskrit name of the first Greek philosopher who openly was vegetarian and got this knowledge from India. So let's be clear that knowledge as we know it and science as we know it does not come from Latin. It does not come from Greek. The Roman numerals would be impossible to make a computer out of, and the Greeks hated zero. So let's be very clear that this knowledge comes from Bharat. And the word for mathematics is ganita. And ganita, or precise mathematics, are in the Rig Veda. Binary mathematics is there. But I wanted to tell you one interesting thing, the yuga cycles. When Adi was pointing out astronomy, I want to show you something. Okay, so this is called the wobble of the Earth. Right now, our Earth is following in its orbit, and the moon is going around the Earth, and we're going around the sun. Meanwhile, the pole of the Earth is wobbling. Okay, and it's called nutation. And that pole, which is at an angle of 23 degrees and some change, is wobbling in the sky. And what is the rate of that wobble? Once every 25,920 years. the pole of the earth wobbles. 25,920 years is NASA's definition, as well as the Vedic definition of that wobble. Now that number divides exactly into 432,864, 1296. These are the Yuga cycles. The Yuga cycles numbers are divisible by the wobble of the pole of the earth. And in another direction, if you count your breaths, they count to the same numbers, and all those numbers add up to 9, which is what 108 adds up to. We live in a base 9 universe, astronomically speaking. The Vedic culture knew that and showed it in a multitude of ways, that everything from your breathing to the cosmos is based upon the ritam. It's based upon a mathematical system with precise ratios in everything. And the reason nature keeps working is because of those ratios. And it is the Vedic civilization that brought us that. And that is the ritam. So before this degenerates into another faith-based religious dispute, it's got nothing to do with that. Stay intelligent, stay scientific. Ask practical questions about the science. And the Veda is based upon that science. And if it says other things, then try to understand there are multiple levels of meaning. So I call modern science, that was the prelude, I call it them the runaway abused children of the medieval Catholic Church. We don't have science. We have Asuric science. The knowledge that Bharat called science has been used to exploit the world ever since. The settlers from Europe, starved, hungry, no good food, left their culture and stole everything from everyone else in the world. So let's be honest about this instead of letting despicable civilizations argue that they're somehow better. They're not better. They've been exploiting the world and they're destroying it still. Do you not see it? That ecology is not ecology. It's Sat. It's Satya. Okay, a rant.
That was a good one. I think there's another point which is made very famously by many people is the politicization of many of the global institutions, such as United Nations, which is supposed to bring harmony in the world, and the modern education system that we have in America, which is based on American exceptionalism, where how Americans are better. And the third aspect is the extreme leftist ideologies which have entered the American education system, and which is also polluting the mind of the future leaders. Because if you believe in karma, you cannot be leftist, because leftists are the people who are depending on the doles of the state many times over. What do you have to say on that, sir?
Well, I told you what I think of left and right. So there is a saying in the Vedas and the Upanishads that the bird has a left and a right wing, and they need both of them, thank you. And then flying down the middle comes from the tail and from your eyes. So I'll keep all three, thank you very much. Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, but again, what's your choice? Do you want a world where everyone gets tasty, nurturing food? So I want to point out one of my favorite problems, which is allopathic medicine. Ladies and gentlemen, allopathic medicine is simply the tyranny of pharmaceutical companies with a single paradigm of healing that isn't healing, it's emergency medicine. And I'm grateful to all the doctors and nurses, don't think I'm not, for helping us when we get in a car accident. But they don't know anything about health. Modern MDs average life expectancy is 53 years because they have a horrible lifestyle and they eat junk food and they don't know what healthy is. But they are good at sewing you back up and doing emergency medicine. But the rest is driven by pharmaceutical companies who have their own agenda, who are exploiting the planet, who are part of the whole ethos of dominance rather than healing. And it comes from toxic agriculture, Monsanto, a myriad of things that are still the residue of our colonized planet.
So one of our authors, new authors, Mitra, has come up with a great book on Sushruta, where it says the medical science originated in India, and we have seen in the Mahabharata war. I have seen the descriptions there that in the war, if there's one shloka I captured, and if somebody's bone was broken in a chariot or something, it would take them just do ghadi. One ghadi is 24 minutes, 48 minutes to cure that. And they had that science during the war. It was not as if like somebody's leg is broken, then he's left on the field. No, there were medical units working 24/7 to capture them, take them to an hospital, which is a makeshift hospital. So very few people understand that Mahabharat war had the field hospitals over there too, to take care of the soldiers who were falling apart, because it was a real war. And the science used was Sushruta. It was called Sushruta. And very surprising thing, Indian Medical Association during the COVID-19 pandemic opposed Indian Ayurvedic medicine, Ayush, for to be used as a cure. And that happened in India. So Mahoday, like, what do you have to add on that? What is the influence over there?
This is the discussion we're actually having about Surah and Asura. Allopathic medicine is the byproduct of the chemical/pharmaceutical lobbies 100 years ago, taking over, creating a paradigm that allowed them to sell multiple billions of dollars worth of product, and often poisons and toxins and very dangerous substances. And that created a lobby, and that lobby and that monopoly has dominated the world and Western civilization ever since, leaving out Chinese medicine, naturopathic medicine, homeopathic medicine. All of the other healing systems are not even interesting to allopathic doctors. And you know that allopathic doctors take one class in nutrition in the entire education they get to become a doctor. So they know nothing about what they're feeding the body. Their diet is as bad as anyone else's. They eat McDonald's while supposedly healing people. This is tamas. This is asura. This is not understanding the healing process, not the gunas, not the doshas, not the elements of nature, not listening to nature, not learning how to use the gifts nature gives us. We're ignoring all of this and arguing over a non-existent caste system instead of what's really important, which is what you have for dinner tonight. What vitamins you take. This will keep you from getting COVID. And the honest truth I can tell you is every statistic we've been given has been given to us without demographics. If somebody gives you a statistic without demographics, they're lying to you. So the death rates for the whole planet right now, nobody knows. Nobody has said what they really are, because they're calling everyone dying of long time abuse, neglect, bad diet, bad nutrition, tamas, asura. It's asuric.
Death rate over last year is the same as this year. 2019, 2020, 2018, same 2.5% increase, which is a standard across the world. And for the viewers who are watching it, and great questions. I have asked all your questions, most of the questions. Some of the questions are repetitive, I didn't ask. And India has exported. India is the world's second largest vaccine producer today, and they have their own version of Covaxin, which is based on their own research, which is not done on animal products. And that's a vaccine they have exported to Canada, 36 million doses, and exported to United States and other parts of the world. So number one vaccine producer is the US, it's a big industry out here. And the second is India. India is the vaccine factory of the whole planet. And yes, go ahead. You're adding
Well,
something?
I was just going to say, and one thing, to be fair, I don't want you to think that I'm speaking against the lovely people who care a lot about humans and our doctors and nurses. I want you to think that they too now are asking all these questions.
Right.
A large number of them are thinking, wait a minute, why don't we have healthy food in our hospital? Let me ask you a question. Would you like to go to dinner with me to the hospital cafeteria? No? No takers? You have favorite restaurants, but not the hospital? Why isn't that your favorite restaurant? It's not the doctor's fault. It's the kitchen's fault. Because health starts in the kitchen. It starts with the spices and the herbs and the food and everything. And this is entirely absent from Western civilization. So it's not that there's no people of good intention. It's that they're ignoring all of the important wisdom of ancient civilizations, whether it's Chinese or Vedic. I'll tell you a great story. Chairman Mao, who killed about 18 million landlords in China at a time when the culture was very corrupt. I'm not on his side. I think that's pretty brutal. But maybe it was necessary. I don't know, because the culture was badly tied up in this dictatorial rulership of wealthy people. But he got sick. He got an eye infection. And they gave him allopathic medicine, and it did nothing. And a Chinese doctor was brought in who cured him in 2 days. He then said, we have to protect our Chinese medicine. So in spite of other things that I wouldn't necessarily agree with, he said, get all of our doctors together, have them pool their information. And this is why in China of today, they have two systems of medicine, Chinese and allopathic, and they're working side by side. This is what we need. Science.
India has 7 medicinal systems working side by side. One is Ayurveda, one is Unani, Siddha, homeopathy, and one of them is allopathy, and one is naturopathy. So these are all seven medicinal systems in India. So when you say how many Indians covered by health system, India has 100% coverage, and that to 1/100th the price of United States today. So a COVID-19 vaccine in India costs free for majority of Indians. Majority is subsidized, fully 100% subsidized by the government. And for few people who would like to pay, they have to pay only $15 for each vaccine, and that is available on demand. So, so you can compare the medicinal science over there on between the two countries. Last but not the least, Gita Comes Alive is a book of Jeffrey Armstrong. You must buy Jeff. It's available on Amazon, and you can go to the website gitacomes alive.com. And also there is a Hindu Bible written for Americans by me, and you can go and check it out on Amazon when you search the term Sattology, Sattology. So Gita Comes Alive, I have read it. I endorse it, and you must read it. It will give you a pure, one of the best linguist translations which is available in the market today. And check it out yourself. And we'll be back with some interesting topics. You gave me a lot of topics today, and I know the strength of Jeffrey, and I'm going to bring him on point on those points. But he has multiple skills in the poems. We want to touch on the poems also. So thank you all for joining, and the show will be available in recorded view on YouTube and in a week's time. So till then, namaste, and see you back next week.